Today, we're going to be looking at a game I had against a Grandmaster where I beat him deploying the King's Gambit. Now, as you guys know, it's my favorite opening in chess. Works very well in Blitz. Granted, he's not that high rated, but then again, neither am I. I am back above 2,500 at a fat losing streak. I was like, fat losing streak, not good. But he is a Grandmaster. Now, I think chess.com needs to have an update where you could see your win rate against titled players, right? Like, I'd love to see my win rate against all titled players. Like, what is it against Grandmaster? What is it against IM? It'd be a nice thing because I know they have the increments where you could see like your win rate against 2,800, 2,700, 2,600, but you don't know, there's 2,400 Grandmaster and there's like a 2,800 Grandmaster. So I think that'd be cool. I don't think it's a thing. Do you guys think it'd be cool? Is it a thing? Kind of stupid, but this game's pretty cool. And I do have a brilliancy, so stay tuned for that. And I don't plan on being that annoying today. So let's get into it. E takes f4. Okay, the King's Gambit accepted. What line does he play? He plays the Fischer defense. We're also going to discuss some King's Gambit theory. But first, let's give some background about the Fischer defense. So it's a funny one. It's a good one. Of course it is. I mean, Fischer invented it or discovered it. But it's funny because Fischer had a game against Spassky where he got like spanked, and then he came out, first he hid himself in his room for 2 months, stared at a wall, as we all do when we lose a chess game because we're sad and upset and disappointed in ourselves. But then he came out and he's like, I refuted the King's Gambit. Of course, he didn't refute it. Computers came out, made it playable, but it's a very good line. So what you're supposed to do against d6 is go bishop c4, and then he botched it. This guy did. He played g5. That's just not a good move because you'll see what happens. You're supposed to play, not that. You're supposed to play h6 to prepare g5. So the move then would be h4, or at least that's the line that I play, stopping g5. And let me show you guys how cool this could get. So you can continue with knight, it's his move, knight f6. You can continue with knight to c3 to defend the pawn. Typically, they go bishop g4 to pin you, at which point you attack this pawn on f4. And now when they go to defend this pawn on f4, if they do, you have the beautiful knight to e5. I love this move. The point is, if they take your queen, you get this silly trap. It's happened in a couple bullet games for me. Not so much blitz, but that is actually a checkmate. And even if they do spot it, which they probably will, or maybe they won't, if they take the knight, you take the bishop aiming at their knight, and they retreat, and you put your queen on f5. Quite a weird square. I've had a couple of things happen in this position. Taking the pawn is egregious for black, because now you either win the queen, right, or you checkmate them. So pick your poison. Now, typically they take with the pawn, you go e5, and it's a very, very complicated line. They cannot move the knight because they get checkmated, but they can take your knight, and then it goes all over the place. This is all I remember up to be honest. It's a game. So that's a cool King's Gambit line, but let's get back to the game. So he played g5, botching it. The reason this is not good is because now you play h4. They cannot play h6. They do go g4, but then you get your knight to g5. So it's kind of like the sacrifice line, but better because you don't need to give up a piece, right? They go knight to h6, of course, defending the f7 pawn, and you strike in the center with d4. You really got to get this guy because then the f file becomes open. Yeah, when you take the f4 pawn, King's Gambit kind of comes to life. He goes c6. Now, the point was to go d5. Apparently, I was supposed to take this pawn, but I went knight c3 because I was like, okay, I want to stop the move pawn d5. Then he played d5, and I was like, wait, what? And then I saw his idea. So his idea is to play pawn to b5 and then pawn b4 and win the d5 pawn back and then cut off my bishop. But I think I came up with a cool idea here. It is the switch, queen to e2. Let me put the review on because this was a classy game. I'm not going to lie. Queen e2, and when they cover, you take on f4. The point is that now when they take the knight, you have pawn to d6. So I was quite happy with this. He did take, and I did go pawn to d6. He's pinned. Now c takes b2. Okay, there's one specific game I'm thinking of where I lost and I was crushing. And it happened because this guy had a pawn one away from promoting. I'm like, that pawn is a non-pawn. It's not going anywhere. That pawn was the bane of my existence. It's kind of like in life, you know, in life when you can't wait for something to happen. Like you're like, oh, like life will be so good when blah 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 happens or dot dot dot, and then it ends up being like the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, you know, when you're like hoping for something to happen and then it happens and then it's like horrible by the time it happens. You guys know what I'm talking about, those tragedies that happen. But rook to d1, I was gonna play, but then I played rook b1. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna scoop that pawn. That's called PTSD, I think, or it's called learning from your mistakes. So king to f8, getting out of the pin. And I thought I was clever here. Apparently, I wasn't. You're just supposed to take the bishop. But I was like, oh, knight e6. I'm going to take that knight with check, and it's good, going to be good stuff. I mean, it's okay, but it's not the best. So bishop takes h6, check. Now, it is pretty cool. If they go king g8, you take, and then you go queen e5, and they get mated. So that's pretty cool, and they're pinned. So he went towards the center. I took, and then I'm like, okay, I know I'm winning here because his pawn structure sucks and his knight is bad and I can still castle and he can't castle. So I went bishop g5 and I'm like, I'm just going to trade off. Not the best. I should have maintained the pressure. Should have castled. He is pinned. But I was like, I know for a fact that I can win this. I was pretty confident in my skills here. So rook takes b2. Again, should castle. I got greedy, or, you know, I wanted to get rid of that pawn because you guys know why. So knight to d7 was played. I did finally castle. He can't castle queenside nor kingside. And then he played rook b8. And, I mean, rook b8 is just a horrible move. I couldn't believe he played rook b8 because now you trade rooks and he just loses because he can't go anywhere. I mean, he's just, you're going to pick up all the pawns. And, yeah, you're going to pick up all the pawns. He played h6. Now, I think the final move I was proud of was rook takes a7, the switch, because if pawn takes, you have rook check, winning the rook. So he went rook to h7, but again, you know, can't move. Also, cannot move and cannot move. I mean, do you see this? Like sometimes you win GMs by flagging them. Sometimes you win because they blundered or they missed something or it's a time scramble. It's pretty rare to beat a Grandmaster when they can't move a piece. Like their position is paralyzed or frozen. So, you know, you can actually be proud of yourself. King to e7, right? Again, like I said, everything is pinned. I went g3, anticipating rook f7. Should have waited for rook f7 and just started pushing the pawn. But to each their own. I started pushing the pawn and he resigned. So, yeah, you know, King's Gambit, great blitz opening. And yeah, thought it was a cool video. I know I need to stop using those fillers and saying, and yeah, we'll get there. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Boom. Boom.